Happy New Year, guys. So in 2025, I think we're entering into what I call the dark ages of relationship coaching. The reason I say this is because more and more over the past year, I've been seeing a lot of more coaches come up and a lot more people being tricked and manipulated by these coaches into doing strategies that can actually be pretty dangerous and pretty backfire quite hard. So as you know, over the last couple of videos, I've been mentioning how there's a massive exodus from a lot of other programs out there and coming into mine, and people only getting results when they come into my program. And I'm not saying this to just brag, as you can see here, but these people go to these other programs because they say, for example, that my program focuses too much on the long term, and because it's focused too much on the long term, it doesn't help you in the short term. Because if you guys are on the brink of divorce, you need to focus on that short term. And over the last couple of videos, I've been debunking a lot of these misconceptions and dangerous strategies that I've been seeing pop up in the last year. So if you're finding yourself on a brink of divorce, I'm going to show you why some of these tactics or short-term strategies that these coaches have, or whenever you hear programs telling you that they have some key to stopping divorce, I want to show you why, while they all sound great, they will usually backfire if you're not very careful. And what you need to understand is that this requires a falling outcome. Relationships are a falling outcome. And just like falling asleep, sometimes the more effort, direct effort you place into falling asleep, the less likely you are to fall asleep. And for a lot of people, these strategies that say, hey, directly focus on stopping a divorce makes a lot of logical sense. But if you see it from a falling angle like that, you start to see how that can be a very big paradox. And if you were to take away one thing from this video, it's really this. The long-term play, when it comes to relationships, the long-term play is really the best short-term play. So stick around to the end if that makes no sense to you. And I want to ensure here from this video that you're not falling for a lot of the manipulative tactics that some coaches have, and make sure that you can understand what's good advice and what's bad advice and don't fall for that trap too, like I've seen so many people fall for. And guys, if you want no BS content that you need for permanent reconciliation, and if you want to avoid tactics that are lead to only fake or temporary reconciliation, consider subscribing to this channel and click the bell as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. And for those of you who are already subscribed, I see a lot of you are subscribed, please help us by voting with your likes, with your comments, and help us in the algorithm. It really helps us when you like the videos or comment on our videos and spread this channel, if it's been helpful for you, to more and more people so we can see more and more relationships flourish and not suffer from the dark ages of relationship coaching. But to understand some of the dangerous advice and why those advice can be quite dangerous, we need to understand, again, two very, very crucial principles. So number one, again, like I teased in the beginning, is around falling versus striving. So you have to understand that in life, there are two kinds of outcomes, right? There are falling outcomes and there are striving outcomes. So when you think about striving outcomes, you can think about things like lifting weights, for example, where the more willpower you add into doing that outcome or getting that outcome, the more likely you are to get that outcome. But there are a whole category of other outcomes called falling outcomes, where just like sleep, for example, the more I try to fall asleep, the more willpower I try to fall asleep, the less likely I am to fall asleep. And when it comes to relationships, they call it falling in love for a very good reason, because love is very much a falling game. But a lot of people will try to use a striving approach to get falling outcomes. And that's where a lot of havoc starts to begin. And a lot of men fall for striving outcomes because it makes a lot of logical sense. So there's a lot of strategies like writing letters, for example, writing letters to avoid the divorce, to talk against divorce, to have conversations, to talk your partner against divorce. And again, while these approaches may make logical sense, but they only make logical sense if you understand relationships as a striving outcome. But if you start to understand relationships as a falling outcome, you start to see how this really breaks down. And the problem with this is that it really puts men in what I call the death spiral of striving strategies. And I see so many of my clients who come in from other programs, they fall into this death spiral. And they're tricked into thinking that there's nothing they can do, but actually there's a lot they can do. And the same thing for relationships, where I see a lot of you striving to stop divorce. But in you striving to stop divorce, you actually create divorce. And when you see that you're moving towards more of a divorce, you strive even more. And this puts you into a negative cycle where you continuously feel like you have done everything. You're exhausted, but you're nowhere closer to stopping divorce. Now, one big caveat here is that these striving strategies can work in the short term. Right? If you tell your partner, if you guilt trip your partner, if you make her feel guilty, if you try to reframe and change her mind about divorce by directly striving to stop divorce, sometimes your partner may come back. But again, this is not creating what I call surrendered decision. This will only lead to fake reconciliation. And the reason I say this is because I see so many people from other programs who have actually recorded testimonials with other programs. They come to my program and they say to me, hey, Jeff, I actually told this coach to take down my testimonial, but they refuse to take it down. Right? So sometimes when you see these testimonials, you have to really question yourself whether the testimonial is actually a real reconciliation or a fake reconciliation. Because sometimes what they do is once these striving strategies lead to the short-term reconciliation, they pull them for an interview right away. They pull them for a testimonial right away. And if it falters again, they don't take it down. And so it gives the illusion that these striving strategies work, but we see the other side of it. We see that the striving strategies does nothing. And I want you to comment below as well. I'm sure many of you guys who are watching this video have seen a lot of other videos on relationships as well. Comment below on what you think are some of the examples of striving techniques or striving tactics that you see from a lot of other coaches, and put them here so we can all become more aware of what to avoid in the market out there. And principle number 2 is really about the perfect process versus perfect product trap. This is, I think, a very big misunderstanding that a lot of people have when their wife wants divorce. So when your wife wants divorce, most people's instinct is to show and talk about how much you've changed, for example. Maybe your strategy is to convince your partner how the issues that you've been facing are not actually issues, but just big misunderstanding. And the perfect product trap is basically when your partner wants a divorce, you tell your partner how, hey, this relationship is actually more perfect than you think it is. And this is why I think some coaches are able to trick so many people, because if you're facing a situation where your partner wants a divorce and then the coach tells you, right, hey, you can write this letter, you can make this promise, you can have these conversations to stop the divorce. It seems to logically make sense, but again, if we understand the real reasons behind your partner's desire for divorce and the secret then to reconciliation, we understand that this is kind of a bit of bullshit. Your partner's not leaving you because of your flaws, because of arguments, because of your mistakes, or because of the problems in itself, whether that's money problems, whether that's depression problems, whether that's child problems or infidelity problems even. Because if you really ask yourself, if let's say you have the same problems you guys have, whatever problems it is you guys have, but your wife believes that you can acknowledge your problems deeply. And once acknowledged, you can discuss it. And once you can discuss it, you can fix it. You can resolve it. So if she sees that whatever problems you have, you can resolve it, you have the trajectory to resolve it, would she leave? No. So the key distinction you have to understand here is that people rarely leave because of imperfect product. But people leave when there is an imperfect product paired with imperfect process. They don't see that, okay, we're down here today, but I don't see a way up. But once they see a way up, nobody will ever leave. And same thing for reconciliation. Reconciliation happens not when you prove to your partner that you're the perfect product. Reconciliation happens when you prove to your partner that you have the perfect process. That's all it takes. So this is where a lot of misunderstandings happen. So I do say, for example, hey, it takes 6 to 12 months or even longer sometimes for people to become closer to the perfect product. But by that time, you are well on your way into reconciliation already. Because reconciliation happens when you prove to your partner that you have the perfect process, and that can happen a lot quicker. And I see a lot of people also falling into what I call the paradox of perfect product. And I want to give you a quote by one of my clients here that I really love. And the quote goes like, the moment you think you are perfect is the precise moment you will be surpassed by someone who doesn't think they're perfect. You know, it's funny because whenever someone tells me they're good already, so they go on a call and they say, I have changed already, I am good already, I wish my wife can just see how good I am right now. It doesn't actually tell me that the perfect product. Actually, all it tells me, and all it tells your partner, is that your trajectory is flat, which is exactly what she doesn't want to hear. And you know, one of the most insightful things my wife has said to me was, because I used to fall for this perfect product trap too. And when I tried to prove to my wife that I've already changed, for example, all she said to me was, hey Jeff, you trying to show me that you've already changed? The only thing you're saying to me is really that this is the best you can be. And if I'm not happy here, if I'm deeply not happy, all it tells me is that I should leave. Because all it tells me is that this is the best that it could be. It cannot be better. Because this is you're telling me this is you as the finished product already. So the paradox of the perfect product here is really that the more you try to prove that you're perfect, the more imperfect you will seem. And so the funny thing also is that you also get with this, the death spiral of perfect product. So the energetic spiral is when, again, just like the previous one, when we say, hey, a lot of men try to prove that they're a perfect product, that pushes away their partner even more. When they see their partner pulling away, they use more perfect product strategies, and this repeats. And I hear a lot of men saying to me basically, man, Jeff, I'm so exhausted. I've tried everything. No, you've tried everything in this front. You haven't tried much in this front. But you trying hard in this front is like you running backwards. Yes, you are exhausted, but you're exhausted running the wrong direction. And the blindness spiral is a big one too. You know, people who fall for the perfect product illusion, and I fell for this too, where I always try to prove to my partner that I was perfect. And whenever my partner told me that I wasn't perfect, I would get all pissy, I would get all angry. And so what happens is eventually I ruin the safety for her to actually tell me the problems. And when she doesn't tell me the problems anymore, I get to live in this fantasy land, in this la la land that I am perfect, because I'm thinking to myself, well, no one's giving me any feedback. No one's saying bad things about me, so I must be actually more perfect than I think I am. But what I don't understand was that people not giving me feedback should actually be telling me the opposite, that I was so imperfect, that I've destroyed safety so much that everyone was afraid to give me feedback. And the second way that the blindness spiral can occur too is, you know, I see a lot of men saying, for example, hey, everyone else sees my changes, Jeff, but only my wife doesn't see my changes. You know, I thought the same thing too, but I later thought also that, you know what, of all the people in the world that of whose opinions I should listen to, I should really listen to my partner's opinions, because my partner knows me at my worst. My partner knows me and all my dirty laundries. My partner knows me and my little quirks and features of myself. My colleagues, they don't know who I really am. They know a mask of me. My kids later on, they won't know who I really am. They just know the mask of me. My friends, they don't know who I really am, right? So if you are finding yourself in a position here where everyone else in your life seems to say to you, like, you have changed, and I see you have changed, only your wife is not seeing it, that should tell you something. That should tell you that the person who knows you away from your mask, when your mask is taken off, is not liking what they see. So let's discuss then, if we understand these two principles, falling versus striving and perfect process versus perfect product, we need to understand a strategy that allows us to fall, that allows your partner to fall, but also allows us to play the perfect process game and not the perfect product game. So how do we do that? How do the pros here deal with divorce? It's really a 5-step thing. So number one, you have to stop the hemorrhage. And the hemorrhage here is really bred by these two principles that I told you about, which is, if you think about it, works like quicksand. So a lot of people, again, they're in quicksand. The more they try to get out of the quicksand, the more they sink. The more they try to strive to stop divorce, the more they create divorce. The more they try to show that they're a perfect product, the less perfect they're showing themselves. The one thought that I want you to have right now, the first step is you need to play the long game to win in the short game. You need to show your partner here that you're not trying to stop divorce. You need to show your partner here that you are trying to play the long game of making these deep changes in a permanent way for life. You are trying to play the long game of working on the internal product, of changing a lot of your internal paradigms. And ironically, when you can show to your partner that you're not focused on the short term of stopping divorce and you're focused on the long-term game of fixing yourself, that is when you actually can stop divorce. And brings me to my second point, which is that you need to relax and you need to play the game smart. You need to play the process game. So your partner is not going to want you right now. I get that. But you have to understand that your partner is not wanting you, not because you are imperfect, but because she doesn't believe that you have the perfect process. And she can never really tell you these real reasons. So for example, a lot of people say, well, Jeff, if she just wants to see my process, my progress, my growth, why is she telling me that she will never see my changes and to change for someone else and so on? So again, you have to put yourself in her psychology. She needs to feel right now that your changes are real and permanent. So let's say here that you right now, you own a company and you're about to hire someone. And the challenge in hiring, in my experience, is really discerning what is real and what is an act. So would it make sense then if I was trying to see that person's behavior at their natural predisposition for me to say, hey, we're looking for this criteria. If you pass this criteria, then we will hire you. Of course not, because if I say that, then I will no longer believe if what I'm seeing is real or because I told them to. The same thing, your partner cannot say, hey, if you do XYZ, then I will believe your changes. Because now when they see XYZ, they can't really believe anymore or understand or discern whether XYZ is bred because it's real, is who they are, or because they're just trying to play the game. They're trying to fake the game. And as you'll see here, you cannot really prove perfect process. You cannot just say to get the perfect process. You have to do it through actions and you have to allow your partner to fall for it. And a lot of you may be asking too, well, at what point then will she fall into the relationship again? So if you're asking the question of when, I get this question a lot. When does it happen? How long does it take to reconcile? In fact, in the last Q&A session, in the group session we had, this is the top question was, when can I expect reconciliation? So when you do a process, when you play the process game, you are trying to do a process. You're trying to learn to do a process without the expectation of having. But if you say, for example, hey, I'm playing the process game, but I really want to know when this process will lead to results, then you're not really playing the process game. You're still playing the outcome game. And I know what I said there was a bit mind-bending, but think about it this way. When was the last time you remembered the moment you fell asleep? Most likely the answer is never. Because the moment you fall asleep is the moment you forget about trying to fall asleep. The moment you ask yourself, when am I going to fall asleep? Am I asleep yet? Is the moment you get out of falling asleep. You get awake again. So the problem with a lot of people when they ask, hey, how long does the process game take for reconciliation? Is that they don't understand that just by asking that question, they're proving to themselves, to the world, their subconscious, that they're not playing the process game. They have just gone out of the process game. For a lot of my clients, the moment they get their reconciliation, when they prove to the partner that they're the perfect process, is the moment they stop asking the questions of when, the question of if. It's when they start to play the process game in a pure way, where they love to do the process intrinsically because they love it, not to get an outcome, without any expectation of an outcome. And when they get to that place, they don't ask the question when or if. And for a lot of my clients, this is a letting go process, to be honest. When you're trying to fall asleep, you don't work yourself up to falling asleep. You just fall. You let go. You surrender. So I get the question a lot. When does reconciliation happen? The answer depends on when can you truly fall? When can you let go? And that's a choice you make. But if you keep asking the questions of when and if, you ironically can never get that thing. Reconciliation, again, is not when you prove to your partner that you're the perfect product. It's when you prove to your partner that you have the perfect process to get your trajectory up here. So it's amazing when people truly untether, when people truly embrace the process intrinsically without any expectation of an outcome. they're very shocked as to how many chances and how the partner just gravitates towards them very naturally. Their partner falls for them. And if your partner is not falling right now back to the relationship, then that should be a sign to you that your process game is not fully pure yet. But once the process game is pure, your focus is pure via maximum untetheredness, then you will see your partner come back. And if you want to understand more about untethering, I have an internal shift series you can watch. Watch that. That's going to be a goldmine of information for you. And number 3 is what I call the ego death. And this ego death, guys, is so crucial because this is the number one thing you need if you want to play the process game. Again, I see a lot of men who come to me with a lot of pomp, right? And they're still trying to prove to people, to me, to their partner that they're the perfect product, that they're an awesome, high-value man. And whenever I hear this, I just kind of let people say it. You know, for me, if someone hasn't gone through the ego death yet, and they're trying to prove to me with their pomp how awesome they are, it actually shows me a lot of your insecurities. Because if you are truly secure in yourself, you don't need to pump yourself to appear powerful. Right? The same way, people who are actually wealthy, they don't really need to show off. It's the people who are insecure about their wealth that they need to show off. When you don't have the ego death and you're trying to use pump to prove that you're the perfect product, all you're telling people is just you're insecure and that you have flaws. The moment for my clients when I realize that they can have the perfect process is the moment when they have this ego death. It takes a very courageous man to be able to admit their mistakes and to be able to look within to see their own inner demons and see it deeply and admit their own mistakes. And just say, I fucked up. Right? But if you're so afraid to look within and admit your mistakes, that looks powerful, that appears powerful, but actually, if you think about it, it's weak. So people who struggle with this ego death, they look and sound powerful and they think they're being powerful, but actually they're weak inside. It's only the people who are secure and who have this ego death, who have no problem getting this ego death, that shows a lot of courage. And that also shows when you get this ego death that you have shifted away from trying to prove that you're the perfect product and into process. Because again, if you cannot even admit your mistakes, there is no trajectory. There's no going up. And the feeling here is almost like you're holding something very heavy and you're just holding on to it and you're just holding on to it, trying to prove something to people, trying to prove yourself to people. But then eventually you just like say, fucking let go, right? And this letting go is when this ego death occurs. And once you go through this ego death, you have to be able to express your humility via what we call the TTH in our program. It's treating the hemorrhage. And just to give you one example of a great TTH here. Hey partner, I know that you really want a divorce right now, and that's the only way you can see us progressing. And I want you to know that I don't have much to say yet. And I'm saying this, and please, I'm saying this not because I am trying to delay the divorce process. I'm trying to avoid this conversation entirely. The reason I'm a bit speechless right now is because I've really taken the last few days to really think about how I've conducted myself in this relationship. And to be honest, the answer I'm coming to is that I would also want divorce for myself as well. What I realize is that whenever the conversation turns to my flaws, whenever the conversation turns to my shortcomings, and whenever you are telling me, and you have been telling me a lot of hints in the past about how you wanted to leave and how you felt like you want to get out of the relationship and how unhappy you felt. And every time you told me those things, I just kind of shut it down. I resisted it. I told you how you were wrong. I said, I belittled it in my head and said, yeah, sure. But I never really took you seriously. And so now, the only reason why I'm not responding is that I want to actually take this seriously. So I want to just sit here and listen to what you have to say. If you want to use me as a punching bag for now, go do it. If you want to continue to express why you want divorce or what the divorce process will look like or how you want the divorce process to go, I'm all ears. Because I really realized that a big thing that I want to become is a man who can stand strong against a lot of the tough truths that I want you to give me. I want to be able to stand strong in that. I want to be able to take that, and I want to be able to use that to introspect and to actually make me better. So I don't know what will happen in this divorce, whether we will divorce or not. I'm not going to make your life harder by trying to stop it. All I care about right now is just about my personal growth, so that if we do one day reconcile, great, right? I want to change anyway so that I can become the man for you. But if, let's say, that at the end of the day, you don't want to reconcile, that's also fine by me. It's not going to change my dedication to want to change myself. And for me to change myself, I need to be able to identify all the things that's wrong with me. So I wanted you to give it all to me. So note how powerful that can sound, right? Here, I'm actually encouraging my partner to divorce. But in that encouragement, I am proving to her perfect process. I am proving to her that I am humble. I want to understand my mistakes, and I know my mistakes. And once I know it, I am on a trajectory to actually going up. And note also that in this, you need to have experienced the ego death first. So I can see already that a lot of you heard what I just said and would interpret it as like simpy, would interpret it as, that's so weird. Why are you encouraging divorce? I'm trying to stop divorce. And a lot of you may even find it cringy or very difficult to admit my mistakes or your mistakes the way I did just now. If that's what you feel, you haven't really experienced that ego death. But again, remember, if you try to appear perfect, if you cannot admit your mistakes, all you're doing and showing to people is that you're weak. Your partner already knows who you are. Your partner knows what you're made of. When you try to suppress the mistakes, suppress your shortcomings, you're not fooling anyone. All you're saying is that you're imperfect, you're insecure, you are weak. You're too weak to actually look within to admit your mistakes. And note also here that I don't want you to use what I just said as a script. I've enrolled 5,000 plus clients, and every TTH that you need to use for every scenario, for every relationship, for every case must be a different TTH. It must be custom. It must make sense for that situation. So please do not use it dogmatically. Even during the group Q&A, we had a case of someone who tried to use the stuff I say, the examples I give, and use it verbatim without understanding the what, how, and the why behind using it. And it backfired. Again, like I always say, if you understand the right how, you will thrive under any what. If you don't know the right how, you will struggle under any what. Meaning that if you don't know how to TTH, whatever TTH you say will not sound good. If you know how to TTH deeply, then whatever TTH you use will sound great. And the reason why this genuineness is so crucial is because at the end of the day, after you say all these stuff, you must follow through. So if you say that you want to stand strong in your partner's expressions, you have to follow through. If you say that you're going to change no matter what, that has to follow through. If you say that you want your partner to point out your flaws, you must be able to follow through on that, right? So it must come from inside. It cannot be a script you just say. Which brings me to my next point, which is that once you have the courage to express the humility externally, and once you do it, you have to back it up with identity-based changes. So you'll hear in a lot of my videos, I talk about the 4 ingredients to surrender, right? 4 ingredients to surrender is really, number 1, you have to prove the existence of the positive. Number 2, you have to prove the absence of a negative. Number 3 is agency. So you have to make it so that this is your partner's decision to come back to you or not. And number 4 is time. Now, if you want to watch a video more on the 4 ingredients to surrender, I'll leave a video up top here. But of these 4, the second one is usually the biggest issue with people, which is the absence of a negative. And even in the group Q&A session, you will hear a lot of people go through Freudian slips. They will say to me, for example, but Jeff, I have been saying the right things. But it's not about what you say that's the right things. It's about what you say that's subconsciously wrong. That's a Freudian slip that's wrong. And this is why we say the changes must become a lifestyle for it to work. That you must master the principles, the skills, until you cannot get it wrong anymore. So again, amateurs practice something until they can get it right a few times, but masters really practice something until they cannot get it wrong. And this can seem a bit unrealistic to a lot of people, but you would do the exact same thing too, right? In that video about surrender, you will hear me discuss more topics around why these 4 ingredients are really the only ingredients you need to surrender, and why even for you, you actually need the same 4 ingredients for you to surrender to a decision. It's not unrealistic. It's just the way life works. It's just the way you create trust. It's just the way you create safety. It's just the way you create that deep, deep surrender to allow someone to actually fully fall for you. And again, these are not skills that you can avoid. So I see a lot of people trying to avoid these skills by saying like, oh, this is too hard, this is so unrealistic, and so they find a new relationship. But if you are not able to create the 4 ingredients to surrender, you'll always find it difficult to allow people to fall for you. Even when you pick new partners, these are skills that you need to learn now or later if you ever want a thriving relationship. And once you achieve all 5 here, once you get to all 5, you are sending your partner a very strong message on how your trajectory now is now positive, how you're playing now the perfect process game. And when that happens, you'll be very surprised as to how much your partner is coming back. And when you are able to do this, guys, it's powerful. Even just 21 hours ago, someone says, the reason for this post is to celebrate the program. A year ago, I was in a feeling frantic, didn't know where my life was going. I found Geoffrey and listened to his message. I took on the program. It was what I needed to get the wake-up call. That changed the outlook on me and how I was approaching my life. I worked on my victim mindsets, my auto-suggestions, my frameworks to approach my 1A partner. Gaining this assertive approach to begin the hard discussions with my partner. So basically, they are doing very well at the moment, right? Getting to the point where she has moved back to the bedroom and we continue to flesh out our marriage, communication, and relationships. And this is because, again, right? This happened because they're playing the process game. She feels that he's playing the process game. So even in the screenshots that I showed you earlier, you will find the partner saying, and please don't stop doing this program. You're doing it because it's the reason for the changes in you and your growth and the reconnection within us. Again, once your partner feels that you have shifted to the perfect process game, that's all she needs to see. Things doesn't even need to be perfect yet, but the fact that she can see the trajectory is going up, that's all she needs to see. That's the power of focusing on the long game, and why I say if you focus on the long game, that is the best strategy for the short game. If you're in a position right now where you are facing divorce and whatever you do is not working, try a different approach. There is a very much a better approach. Be open to a better approach. And once you embrace this better approach, you'll be amazed. So if you're, again, in a place where you are in the brink of divorce and you want a strategy that actually works, that actually gets you to the right direction, that actually understands these tiny little nuances of your situation and understands these tiny nuances of psychology to actually put you in the right direction, then join me in my masterclass, where I show you the 5 proven steps that all my clients have used to get them from ground zero to where they are today. And at the end of the masterclass, I'll show you also how to apply for the program if you're interested in doing so. But for now, guys, I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope to see you in the next video.